Hi there, welcome to the Folk My Life podcast. Each week we'll be sitting down for a chat with some of our favourite artists and musicians from the Folk My Life playlist, and I am so excited to introduce my guest this week. Before I do, if you haven't subscribed to our weekly playlist, please look us up wherever you get your music, Spotify, Deezer, YouTube, or just our website, and we release a new list each week, so there's always something new to enjoy. If you like the podcast, you can follow this wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be releasing a whole series of these chats over the next few weeks. We really love sharing music, so if there's anything you want to share with us, send us a direct message or email us at playlist@folkmylife.co.uk. So my guest this week is an artist from Southampton who is forging ahead at the white-hot edge of loud folk. He is selling out shows everywhere, carving out a genuinely new and unique space for himself in the crowded heart of the contemporary folk world. His niche in this landscape is unmistakable, and his sound is like nothing else around. I would say he's one of the most interesting, invigorating and inspiring cocktails of musical styles on the circuit today. Rob Clamp, thanks for taking the time to chat with us. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. What a lovely introduction. Thank you.
It's great to have you here. I've got so much I want to chat to you about. Europe, sellout gigs all over the place, your amazing band, supporting some of the biggest names in the world, socks. But let's get down to the business. Why were you, or are you still, running 1 kilometre for every gig ticket you sell?
I'm not doing that as much anymore. I did that for one show. I did it for our Southampton kickoff show for our tour that we just did. And I was doing it to fundraise for Samaritans. Basically, as any musician will tell you, it is a horrendous slog trying to promote shows as you go. So I tried to do something with a bit of an edge that would hopefully raise some money for a good cause whilst, still reminding people I'm playing music. So I pledged to run 1 kilometre for every ticket sold for the show. And I think, but I didn't do it from the start. I'm relieved I didn't. Otherwise, I'd have been in a lot of trouble. But I did end up running about 150 kilometres in March. Well, just over.
That's incredible.
Yeah, well, it was all for a good cause. It's for Samaritans. And it's a fantastic charity, and there's still so many people that need that support out there. I think we've raised over £500 now. So it was, to be honest, when I came off at the end of the show, I think somebody asked me like my favorite part about it was, and it was just the fact that we'd done that. So it's really nice to be able to do that. Not that I didn't enjoy the show, but there's this kind of part of you that I guess I want to try and do things the right way, and that was something that I was really proud of. So I'm happy I did it. But I'm not going to run for everybody all the time. I'm really sorry. Please stop telling people that.
Okay, fine. That's fine. Because at some point you're going to sell out a huge show, and I had this vision of you sort of really regretting it on your third marathon. Like, what have I done?
I regretted it this time. I've got to be honest. I regretted it after the second day. Because it's this thing, right, where for whatever reason at the moment, it feels like there's quite a lot of people who buy their tickets quite late. Yeah. So as much as anything, it was like a little bit of a nudge. Come on, people, like let's try and move tickets along. Let's bring awareness to a good cause and let's promote a show at the same time. And I didn't really anticipate the first 2 days. I think 20 people bought tickets. And, the show had been on sale for a couple of months already. So the people that I would personally message to ask to buy tickets or whatever, they'd already got theirs. So I was relying on people that I don't know as well or are just really supportive. And I remember I announced it like the week before, and we sold no tickets the week before. And there was part of me that was like, oh no, people are now waiting to buy them. So I think I ended up running 20k that first weekend. On the second day, I think I had to do 12k. It was something like that. And I was just like, why have I done this? It's I can't sustain this. And fortunately, I'm not that popular. So they did, the ticket sales did kind of ebb and flow a bit, which made it a bit easier. But I ended up, over 150k in the month, which was something else. I'm not sure what I'm going to do the next time. We'll see. I might do it again. It was a good idea.
You say you're not that popular, but tell me about the joiners. I mean, you sold that out in 23, 24. You pretty much always sell out, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. It's when we play locally, we do quite well for tickets, I guess.
Yeah.
The Joiners was our first full band show. When I first kind of put that together, I didn't even have the band, and I was just gigging a lot around Southampton. And I think that it just sold a lot better than I was even expecting it to. I was hoping it would sell well, but 200 people for a folk gig is it's not easy when you're an independent act, I guess. And yeah, I mean, it sold out. I think within a few, like 6 weeks, something like that, it sold out. And then I was kind of under pressure to recruit a band because all of a sudden we have more people coming than I was expecting it to be a much more dispersed audience.
That's a really nice problem to have, though,
And,
Rob, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was nice because all of a sudden it was like I could ask musicians that might be more inclined to want to play because you've got this nice thing to do straight away. So that was really cool. And then, yeah, we had a run of shows that seemed to sell really well. And yeah, we don't expect anything by any means, but I think when we play around Hampshire, we kind of hope to sell tickets where we go. So that's quite a nice situation to have. But obviously, it's strange because I've gone from where I was just playing in Southampton to all of a sudden now I'm playing in lots of different places, and it's a different kind of pressure now because it's like I'm promoting shows in different parts of the country, so you can't do that priority focus on one show anymore. Mm-hmm. Which is the difficult part, I guess, because, for that one-off show, it's every piece of promotion is on that one show. That's all it is. But when you're juggling, 7 or 8 of those, like we had for the tour that we've just done, you can't do that. You have to try and focus on, certain shows as and when, but you have to, just... all of a sudden the tour starts and you're promoting every show as you're going along anyway. But yeah, I've always been really proud of the following that we've got, and I'm really happy to have that and continue to try and build on it. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to meet some of your loyal followers in London, and they turned up like fully Rob Clamp branded. I mean, they had every piece of merch already on, which was wonderful to see. And I just as the gig was getting started and people were sort of getting that buzz going, I had a chance to have a chat to a few of them. And do they have a name, your fan club? Because
no.
I've been calling them the Clampons. And in my mind, I think that's exactly what they ought to be called, because they are such a wonderful group of people, and I was so thrilled to meet them. And it's not often when you go to a gig and everybody has a cool following. Yeah. But what I loved about the Clampons is that they specifically were telling people in the pub that, like, strangers, like, you have to see this guy. Do you know Rob? Do you know Rob's music? Do you know his style? And I've never seen such a great bunch of evangelists in a venue before, and I was so touched by that. I think that says so much about your relationship with them as theirs with you, if you see what I mean.
Oh, I mean, you can imagine how I feel. I mean, I may well take that name. I've got to be honest; it's a brilliant name. But yeah, no, it's amazing. There's some people out there who would just go above and beyond in terms of their support for me, and I don't know. The aim with what I do with my music is just to try and be as upfront and honest and try to give the support back that people give to me. That's why I do things like the running. I mean, I won't go too far into it because it's an awkward thing to talk about. But as far as I'm concerned, the music industry is in an interesting situation, and there are quite a lot of artists and venues that are falling at the wayside. And I think it's really important that not only, like, if you have any element of success in it, then I think it's really important that you need to be able to offer that support back to the community that's given you the platform to do it. So that's the idea. It's not just, yeah, it fair enough, sell out the shows, but you do need to remember the people that have come to the shows and give them something back and keep supporting them when they support you. So yeah, we try and do random things like merch or what the messages or the signing of stuff, the photos after the shows, always talk to people. It's been quite funny talking to the band about it because I was kind of always just like, well, I'm going to come off stage and talk to people. That's just how I do things.
Mhm.
Like, it's the same with life, really. I talk too much. You're probably going to have a problem editing this because I will talk too much. I like talking to people. So if people want to talk to me, that makes it even worse. And I think when the band kind of started to realize that, when I kept on having to come to them and say, look, we're going to need to hang around near the merch desk or at least go to the bar area or something, because you might need to sign stuff. People might want to take photos, those things. Not everybody wants to do it. And I'm not, a really famous person with a big profile or whatever, but I think that it really does matter to the people who support us. So it's nice to be able to do it, and we can do it. So we do it. Ultimately, that's why you do it.
I think it's nice that you recognise that, but in a way it's almost obvious that you recognise that, because the way that you construct your show and the way that you engage with people during your show, it's a really accessible way to present music. People feel like they're part of your world when they come to see you. And just little things like saying we're going to unplug and we're going to come and bring back to quite a fusty live space of that kind of classic folk club feel of, almost like a sing around where you just say, we'll unplug as much as we can, and this is really what we sound like, when we're together around a campfire or we're in the van singing. It's really a nice way to engage with people. I will talk about your merch desk in a minute, but yeah, I love the fact that you do that. You bring people together like that. That's incredible.
Well, no, thank you. I mean, the first show we did, as you've spoken about, was at the Joiners, and that was in front of 200 people. And that felt like we needed to just do the songs that I had and just present them to people. And even though it's only just gone 2 years ago, but you just want to keep on developing as an act and as musicians. And you want to try stuff and do things differently. And I know that it's been done before with the unplugging and the folk band kind of playing unplugged. But I think we just really want to give people a good experience, and we want to lay it all out there and see what works and what doesn't. And the point is, we're willing to take risks, and I think that people see that, and they see what we're trying to do, and they kind of like the idea that it could all go wrong at any point. When I play solo, normally acoustic guitar, and I have foot percussion on both feet and singing. And I used to say, it's funny because you'll either get entertainment in a good way or a bad way, but either way, you'll find it entertaining. Because I find it just as funny to see someone mess up as I do to be really good. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that adds an element of trepidation to it, which I've always found interesting. But we've taken that and we've ran with it. So, yeah, that's the idea, really.
I think it really works, and I think people recognise that they're ordinary people, that they're people out there like you creating something that people want to enjoy and want to come to. I will talk about the merch desk a little bit, actually. I like the fact that people now want to buy a CD and sort of take it home and look at it while they stream music.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'd always try and encourage people to buy something from the merch table, even if it is socks, because that link to the musician and that real cash transfer is a great way to kind of support music. And I really love the fact that you're trying to be original with your merch and with the things that you sell at the end of a gig. Can you tell us about socks on your merch table? I really love this. I want more musicians to sell socks on their merch table.
Well,
they're brilliant.
Well, I mean, you're right about CDs. I think that people are indifferent towards CDs a lot of the time. I've always tried to work with the artwork. I've never really had the capital to invest in vinyl. I'd love to have vinyl on my merch desk. I really would. But because of the foot percussion element, I've always worn relatively jazzy shoes and jazzy socks. So last year I was playing in Ireland. There's a company called Thomas's Socks. By all means, look them up. I think they're based in Dublin. They design really cool socks, but have a certain percentage of their profits go to support Down syndrome charities. So it's kind of based around, again, giving back to the community. I really need to make this clear. It wasn't like we're going to make any kind of socks. They made really high standard socks for this really good cause. And I just thought it was fantastic. And then I was just talking to Shane, who runs it, and he was like, well, if you've got an idea for a design, then let me know. And funnily enough, my debut album was called Lost Soul. Obviously, as in soul, SOUL,
Yeah.
but the pun is lost soul, SOLE.
I love
So had to put it on the bottom of some socks, with some banjos and violins and guitars, acoustic guitars on there. So that's what the socks are basically. But we do donate 50p from each pair of socks is going to support a Down syndrome charity in the UK. So again, it's all meant for good things, good times. The socks are great. Funnily enough, I sold out over the 2 shows. I think I saw you in London, and the next night I'd almost sold out all of them in London, but to a complete range of ages, shall we say, which I've seldom had. Normally it's kind of an older generation that purchase from the merch desk, but the socks were a real hit. Apparently I've hit something that I didn't even think was a thing. Like, no. I've just stumbled across it. I was trying to do something nice,
But they're brilliant. And, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I can vouch for the quality of the socks because my wife had to take them off me and say, it is not appropriate to wear the same socks for 3 days. And I don't see any problem with that because I really like them.
Well, you are allowed to wash them. You can wash them. Like, I'm not going to stop you from washing them. You know that, right?
They are fully machine washable socks for sure. But that did mean having to hand them over, which I was very reluctant to do because I've become quite fond of them. Yeah. Joking aside about that, one of the things that I think has hit a bit of a nerve with that on the merch table is I see so many people at gigs who kind of want to engage and they want to say something to the musicians or the artists that they've seen performing, even if it's just, an awkward sort of chuck on the shoulder and say, I really enjoyed that, thanks. And they want to support. But when you look at the table and there's nothing that really appeals to you because you don't want to buy a CD because you don't have a CD player, but you don't really know how to support an artist without buying something, it's quite nice to have a table that's accessible and it works for people. I really want you to play something, Rob. Is that really cheeky?
No, it's absolutely fine.
I can see a guitar there. What could you sort of do without too much of a plan?
I can play. Well, I could play more or less anything. I don't know if you've got any requests, but I'm happy to play whatever, really.
I tell you what, can you do All Quiet on the Western Front? And we'll talk about that song afterwards because it is such an amazing piece of music lyrically and musically. And I would love to hear it first and then we'll talk about it if that's okay with you.
That is absolutely fine. Let's go for it. Yeah, I'll grab it now.
All quiet on the Western Front, where the wise men sing, and the fragile dawn. Blue lions pulling out their guns, way down by ice in the winter sun. And oh, you are dancing in the ashes. They told you to survive, and we saw through all your service medal jackets. They didn't give you the right. As all goes quiet on the Western Front tonight. Knife through batter on a nation's tongue, drawn out by fire as they wait too long. Pull your finger out to feel your thumbs, General Sir, on the Western Front. And oh, you are blowing out your matches. They thought you wouldn't lie, and we saw through all your Oxbridge colored badges. They didn't give you the right. as all goes quiet on the Western Front tonight. Oh, oh, chosen letters from the fallen sons to the parents who have lost loved ones. Send more over when the morning comes, while you're 5 miles back from the Western Front. And all you are throwing back your glasses while they taught you how to die. We saw through all the bullets and the scratches. It didn't give you right. As all goes quiet on the Western Front tonight. Oh, oh, on the Western Front tonight. On the Western Front tonight.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much for doing that for us. And that's a gorgeous version, actually. You've tweaked that a bit.
Well, there's that's kind of the original acoustic version, I guess. I play it differently solo than I do with the band. Kind of, yeah.
Wow.
The original version, I guess. Yeah.
Sounding so good. And I hope that encourages people to not only look at your back catalogue, but I hope it encourages people to come and see you live as well. Can you tell us a story about how that song came about? Because it's quite an interesting story, I think, isn't it?
So basically, I went over to see my grandmother towards the start of the pandemic, I guess. And it was her 89th birthday. And I think, she's my last remaining grandparent. So she kind of taken it upon herself to pass down all things family history related. And she was flicking through a very old family photo album, and she turned to this picture of a young man in First World War uniform. And that was the first time I found out I had a member of the family that had fought in the First World War.
Wow.
And, I was 28, so I was kind of a bit taken aback that it had taken that long for the message to get to me. So I just turned to her and I was like, why didn't you tell me? And she just smiled, and she turns the page again, and there's the same young man in the next photograph, but this time he stood next to a much older man who's also in First World War uniform. And the older man was my great-great-grandfather, and the younger man was his son, Jack.
Goodness
and
me.
Yeah, and they both went off to war together, and my great-great-grandfather came home alone. So I didn't really know that was part of my DNA. And I was reading the book at the time, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I think, you speak to a lot of musicians about the songs they write. That's probably the song I'm most proud of writing. Because that one, I don't really know what it is, but I wrote it really quickly. I think within, more or less within an hour. And I'm really proud of it. And it's funny because, it's subtle things like the lyrics change in every chorus, so it's things that you only really notice when you really listen to it. But it's been really interesting playing it in different countries as well. And especially, I've played it in Germany a lot, and it gets just as much, if not more respect playing it in Germany than it does in any other country.
I was going to ask you about that, because I'm interested in presenting that song, because I know we're going to hopefully talk about Germany in a minute, but it's such a personal song from your history, and it's such an emotionally astute song in the way that you've constructed it, because there's a lot of detail buried in the song that you sort of need to unpick as a listener, which allows people to come to it with their own story. I think everybody's got their own relationship with the First and Second World Wars, and I think giving people a place to put their emotion is really brave, because, there aren't enough spaces for that, especially in folk music.
I can completely, thank you, Andy. I completely understand why. I think most musicians just want to write about the things that connect with them, right? And it's not necessary that people connect or identify with certain elements of history. And, God knows the British Army hasn't always been the best representation of people in this world, because they've not always been known to do great things. But I think, especially in the First World War, that's a war that, to me anyway, speaks about, people who are, in the most part, following orders and seem to have a respect amongst themselves. Between sides, there still seems to be that element of respect, which didn't necessarily and doesn't necessarily take place in every single war. You know what I mean? So there's that element to it which makes it maybe a bit more personable. I don't know. When I wrote it, I certainly had in mind. I was quite emotionally charged, I guess, at the time. And obviously, you're reading this book anyway, and you're hearing that. My grandmother said, it wasn't her grandfather. It was my granddad's uncle who died, and it was my granddad's grandfather who also fought alongside him. Speaking to her and how she'd spoken to him about it, supposedly when he came home from the war, he was a very much a quieter man and didn't want to talk about it, as many people don't. We know a lot more about PTSD now than we used to. But I just kind of was trying to think about what he might have wanted to say if he could have done. I'm not saying he would have done, and I'm not saying that maybe he would have felt the same way, but as much as anything, I just wanted to say something. I think that was it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go in for a song like that, I think you've got to really say something. Otherwise, you don't touch on it, because it doesn't, you either do it and you do it 100%, or you don't do it.
It's such a powerful story, and it echoes from so long ago. Did your grandmother hear you do the song? Has she heard the song?
So she's heard it. It's been it's not funny, but it is quite funny playing it to her, because her hearing isn't the best. She's 93 now.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first wrote it, like, she was the first person I took it to play to. I was
really?
like, I've written this song for you. And I remember I played it to her, and she was just like, I remember her taking her hearing aid out halfway through, and she was like, too loud, Rob, like one of those moments. And then about, I think a year later, when the song had been recorded and was released, and I was like, oh yeah, I wrote this for you. And I don't think it really registered. And then it was, we did the album launch last year, and it had the song on it. The song had already been released, but it had the song on it. And she was talking to me just about music and everything, and I was talking to her about that song. And it was funny because I played it again for her, but I think she properly listened that time. It had been like, I was like, did you not hear me playing it the first 2 or 3 times? But I think she really took it in. And I have this really vivid memory in my head then afterwards, which was after I'd played her the song. And, she's as I say, she's 93. So she doesn't come to my shows, and she would love to. I know she would, but it would probably be too much for her. And I remember leaving the room to go and put my shoes on. And I heard her talking to my mum about it. And she couldn't believe that I said to her, I play this song everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And I tell the story every time, and I retold her the story, and she didn't really. I think that's when it hit her that I told the story and I sang the song, and she turns to my mum and says, isn't that funny how he plays that everywhere he goes? And my mum was like, he's been doing it for the last 2 years, And my grandmother said back to her, it's nice though, because I can't go with him, but he takes me with him everywhere he goes in that song. So it's like, in itself, I felt like that's more than enough. And it's true with a lot of my music. A lot of it's about family members, my brother, my grandmother, my mum, my dad. I tend to play a lot of songs about my family in the sets that I do. And that's maybe where the personal touch comes from. It's not intentional. I'm not intentionally going out there to pour out my soul or whatever necessarily, but I just these are just what I write songs about. I just write songs about the people around me and the places I go, and the stories that impact me enough for me to express them into music. That's all it is. So maybe that's why I don't know. I've been told I perform in quite a compelling way, and maybe that's why it is, because all the songs mean a lot, you know. So
I think genuinely you do, and there's something that I think it's which some people may or may not get, but every now and again, if you've been in a studio and you've hit a drum in a certain way and it's pinged the string of a guitar, like somehow there's a resonance between certain objects, and I think genuinely people get that. I certainly get that with your track Riverside, which I didn't realize was written in relation to your mum until I saw you perform it live, and that opened up that song for me in a totally new way, and I love that more now in context than I did before, because I didn't understand necessarily where I was getting that resonance from until you kind of made it obvious. But I want to talk about the resonance or the link between songs like the Western Front, which you just played incredibly for us, and I'm still grateful for you doing that. I can't wait to edit this and listen to that again. But there's a direct link between that and your latest release too, you know, Running Out of Steam. I'd love to know how you feel about those two songs in context at a gig, especially in Europe where people are perhaps not listening in their native English. So
yeah,
I'm interested to know about that.
It's funny, right? I don't intentionally write political music. I don't consider myself a political musician in the slightest. I do consider myself a pacifist, so I'm absolutely useless in a fight. But in terms of that song, I guess Russian forces invaded Ukraine, and I had weirdly, I think, All Quiet on the Western Front I'd released a little while before then. And there was just, I think there was just something in my head, just like, you know, I feel like All Quiet on the Western Front could almost resemble what's currently happening now. A lot of the connotations and the things that I'm talking about. And I didn't really mean to write it. Like it was just something that I was frustrated about. 3 days after they invaded Ukraine, I wrote the song, and again I wrote the song within a day. And I played it at an open mic. I remember somebody came up to me, and for whatever reason, they were of the opinion that Russia was doing whatever they were doing for good reason or whatever. That was the opinion of this person that came up to me. And I wasn't really sure how to react to that. And because I'm not a very confrontational person, I just didn't expect it, to be completely honest. The song at the time, in the way I performed it, it was pre me using foot percussion, so it was very soft. So it was like meant to be quite a sweet way of saying people can take what they want, but they'll never take the spirit of, you know, of where they're invading. Basically, you know, that's a lot of what I'm talking about with the song. But I think that kind of put me off playing it, just because I didn't want to experience that confrontation every single time that I played.
That's interesting.
I didn't really know what to do about it, so I didn't play it for a little while. I was still passionate about it, obviously about, you know, being against that happening. And then I think about a year ago now, I was just playing the riff, and for some reason I just decided to play it with a pick rather than play it with my fingers. And all of a sudden I found that there was a lot more like of a beat behind it. And then I felt myself singing it a lot more powerfully rather than softly. And then I felt this overpowering kind of emotion of like, you know, right, this is how this song needs to be. And now all of a sudden the song has a thump to it, which maybe it was missing before. And it's kind of maybe the heart that I hadn't put into it with the beat that was missing. That was the thing that stopped me from playing it before. But as soon as we added that beat, well, as soon as I kind of started, you know, playing with a pick and really kind of playing with foot percussion, and then I took it to the band, and it just all of a sudden, I was just like, we have to play this. You know, we've got to record it straight away. And I regret not having it out there earlier, if anything, because, you know, again, I want to support these communities of people that I believe in, There's another part of me that's slightly uncomfortable. I never want to. I'm talking very candidly. I never want to be one of those people that comes across as if they're writing songs for the sake of attention or whatever. I'm writing songs because I really care about the things that I'm talking about, and I think that maybe at the time when that had just happened, because it was such big news, that people might interpret what I was doing for the wrong reasons. So maybe that's another reason why I didn't play it so much at the time. But I love the song. It's really good fun to play it. I don't tend to introduce it that in depth because I like to let that song just do the talking for itself. Specifically referring to heavyweight fighters giving their belts up to bleed. I kind of like the lines like that because I think that was the Klitschko brothers, I think, did that. Yeah. They volunteered to fight. I think it was that, and I think Usyk as well. I can't remember exactly who it was, but there was, stuff like that where I tried to go out of my way to really make a point of, it doesn't matter who it is. There's everybody in this country is backing them. So it's, or supporting Ukraine, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons I like the folk world, and I don't want to single folkies out as being more astute than in general. But I think the music industry in general really does struggle with virtue signaling in a really big way, and I don't find the same approach to virtue in folk clubs and in those kinds of intimate folk gigs when people play personal songs about something that's affected them, like the war in Ukraine or the First World War, or the irony of having a ceasefire to commemorate the end of a war before starting a war again. It just those deep ironies kind of happen, and people are annoyed and they're anxious about how to feel about it, but it doesn't feel like virtue signaling in the folk world because it comes from such an emotional, honest place. Maybe it's because the whole industry in the folk world is kind of more intimate and small and more relatable. And it doesn't feel like you're cashing in on an idea because, in fact, no one's cashing in on open mic nights. Everyone's just putting their hearts on the stage and letting people kind of pick at them.
I think that
maybe that's it.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I think there's a lot of, the folk world that just likes listening to the lyrics. I think that's always been a thing. And I think they like the story and the storytelling behind it.
Yeah.
I think, it's difficult for me as a guy from the south of England to be singing about a war that's however many thousand miles away. I can imagine the very bitter people out there saying, like, what does this guy know about that? You know what I mean? I only know what I see on the news or on social media. There's a part of me that's cautious about that sort of thing, but I do think there's a general understanding that, especially in the folk world where they're listening to really intrinsically analyzing the lyrics of songs, often to a point where I'm like, I didn't even think that would come across like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And but
that is really interesting.
I mean, it's a safe space. I think a lot of folk music is a safe space. And generally speaking, I think in folk music, if people see that you're trying to do good, then they're more than happy to support you if the music's good. That's the idea behind it. So I think a lot more musicians feel a lot more comfortable just saying however they feel, because there's more of a community there. I'm not sure. But that's how it feels anyway. It seems like quite a happy, secure place to be. Yeah.
I think you're right. And I think you do yourself a slight disservice when you say, what am I achieving by singing a song or putting that out there as a piece of music? Because you've toured that song all over Europe. And even if people just sit back having heard somebody mention the former KGB as a lyric and says, in its context, that's not okay. Just think about that for a moment and remember that that's not okay.
Yeah.
Just flying that flag and carrying that torch around Europe and presenting that awkward dilemma between, burying your head in the sand like a lot of people do and listening to something and being confronted by the idea and having to go home in the car and talk to your partner about what that song means. That in itself has repercussions to everybody who hears it every time you do. I thought about it all the way home on the train from London, and I thought, why haven't I written to anybody about the situation? Why haven't I personally done more? Because you know, in your small way, you've got up and sung a song about it, and you sent 200 people home questioning their life choices about why they haven't done anything about it. So it is important, and it is important to make the point and to ask the question. So don't ever feel like it doesn't make a difference, because it does.
Thank you.
You've talked about the difference between the music industry in Europe and in the UK, and I'd love to find out what is wrong with the music industry in the UK and why it's working so well in Germany for you. I genuinely want to understand how they're getting it so right, and whether there's anything we can learn from their approach to live music and independent music compared to here. What are they doing so much better than we are?
But there's almost so much, it's difficult to explain it. I think that for one reason or another, there's still a lot of towns in Germany that have these small music venues and music cafes that are really struggling to survive here. And I don't want to go too far into economics with this, because I do think it actually comes back to that. But there's a really strong culture for paying musicians by a hat pass in Germany, in particular in Germany, so which stems from people having cash, like physical cash on them available to pay people. And there's also a culture of being able to accept that from a musician's perspective, depending on how many people are in the room, that's how much you'll get paid. And from a audience perspective, how good the musician is as to how much you might want to contribute to them playing there on the night. So there's all these different kind of levels that come from some kind of cultural element. So I think it can stem from being as simple as people do not carry the cash around here to easily donate to musicians, which, you know, that's a societal thing. I'm not 100% sure how that's happened to the point it has, but in Germany, cash seems to still be a thing. They've retained that one way or another. There seems to be a willingness and an openness, because of this kind of hat donation method process, to openly go to live music and then be happy to contribute however much you feel comfortable, because of depending on the standard of musician, and they are able to support the venues themselves through purchasing drinks. So it's small things. It's a lot of different things. What I will say is that culture seems to exist there. Doesn't seem to exist as well here. There's a lot of musicians still touring across Germany. And from what I have heard, there have been a lot of venues that have shut down in Germany. But there seems to still be a lot more that are there than are here. It feels like it's a more forthcoming place in being able to build a fan base. Yeah. That's the way that it feels to me. Maybe that's just my style of music. I don't know.
Do you think on the continent they're more curious to things that they don't know? Like if they know they'd like a venue and they don't necessarily know the name of the person who's playing, they would go because they think, yeah, I'm curious to see whether I will discover something. Whereas I think we've lost that a little bit here, to be fair.
I do certainly think there's an element of, this guy's from the UK, he must be all right at what he does if he's coming here, because he's come a long way to be here.
On that topic, there's a musician called Jennifer Reid has just toured New Zealand, singing in a Lancastrian accent for Kiwis. And I somehow think there's a curiosity about that exports, but I can't imagine a person from New Zealand getting the same level of curiosity from a British audience. And I don't understand how we've lost that as a community. I don't know whether that's culture that's done that, or whether people have just become jaded with life. I don't know why. It's so sad.
I'm not 100% sure. You know, it feels like there is a less curious audience in this country. There are certainly a lot of curious people out there. I know for a fact there's tens of thousands and probably millions of people out there that are willing to try and listen to new music all the time. I'd like to think that I've found something that I genuinely enjoy in traveling and playing music, and I want to keep doing it. And, you know, I won't always play in all the big cities. It's like if somebody asks me to come and play in a music venue, which is, I don't know, 100 miles away from the next major city, I'll come and play it, because that's just who I am as a person. I get so much out of going and playing that, you know, maybe some of the decisions I make aren't the most financially viable ones from a standpoint of, I probably shouldn't drive a certain amount of distance to get, you know what I mean? Like, I probably shouldn't be doing this on a map across Germany. It would make much more sense if I went round like this, but often I'll be like this and doing this because I want to play at all of them, and I will try and fit it in. That's it. It's not financially viable for me to do that, really. Well, it is financially viable if the shows pay well enough, but you get what I mean. It's not.
I do totally. But then that's how you ended up sending your last van home from Germany on a
That's
on a
pretty
lorry.
much it. Yeah, that's exactly it. But Andy, that's what it's about. You know, it's about life. It's about experiences. Yeah. It's about enjoying yourself and just going out and living a little bit. I wasn't a musician. I didn't focus on music properly until I was about 25 years old. And I feel like I was old enough before that. I feel like I was an adult. Therefore, I was old enough to understand what I would expect to see from a musician on a stage and what I would like to see and feel from that musician after the show and everything around it. And that's just what I try to do, because I've got no idea what I'm doing most of the time. I'm just walking around, just trying to have a good time. That's what it's all about. I mean,
it seems like such a solitary experience to some extent. That huge amounts of traveling between places on your own in a van.
Yeah.
And I do quite like the idea of you torn with your van on the back of a pickup truck, having broken down in the middle of Germany. I really like the idea of you being torn between sitting in the cab of the tow truck with the driver or sitting on your own in your own van. I'm going to do this my way, whether it's on a lorry or not. I'm gonna.
I think there comes a point where you have to ask yourself why you're doing this. You know what I mean? And now this is probably why it leads to me having these ridiculous traveling experiences where the van is breaking down in what felt like the only place in Germany where no one spoke any English. It's my own fault. You know, I should speak more German, but that I am, of course, there in Germany. So it makes sense I would be speaking German. But there was a part of me that was like, I fumbled my way across this country with people speaking broken English and me speaking broken German, and I happened to break down outside the only mechanic that I have seen that does not speak a word of English, which it's my fault, so I cannot be angry at that, but it summed up the situation, if you get what I mean. It was exactly what I thought it was. And
that sounds like a Folk My Life moment, to be honest. I love to ask people for a Folk My Life moment at the end of the podcast, which is, you know, just when you put your head in your hands and you say exactly that, just Folk My Life, you know. That sort of feels like a pretty good Folk My Life moment. Do you have one that springs to mind other than, you know? I mean,
that is a pretty big one. Because I talk too much, I have a really bad tendency of digging my own grave. I do remember once, I've got a song called Who Shot JFK, mm-hmm. and I'm very candid and open about how I wrote it kind of practicing. I was actually practicing songwriting. So I went on Netflix and I hit shuffle, and the film JFK starring Kevin Costner came on, and I watched the film and I wrote the song. So the song's not necessarily a conspiracy song as such. It's a song about a conspiracy film, I guess you would say. So okay. That's more what it's about. One awkward experience with one person telling me that they agreed with the conspiracies of whatever I was singing about, told me to just be honest, because I didn't know what I was talking about with the conspiracies. Anyway,
that's brilliant.
That's it, but that's for another story. But I did used to do this thing where I would say, right, this is a song about what happened on, I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head, which sums it up exactly, because I got the date wrong of the JFK assassination,
right? Of
what happened on, I think it was November 5th, 1963. I might be wrong. It's something like that. Yeah. I said completely the wrong year, the wrong date, the wrong month. It's probably what I've just done right now.
Okay.
And then I played the song. And then after the show, 11 people told me I got the date wrong. And there was only 20 people in the audience. So I didn't... by the time that I got to the 11th person, I was just like, I know I've got it wrong. I know. And they kept on making the point, well, you know, if you were alive in the 60s, you'd have blah, 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 blah. And I was like, for goodness sake. So that was one of them. And since then,
I like that.
I've introduced it for the way that it actually is, which is it's a song about the film JFK starring Kevin Costner. But then there's also my van breaking down. And there's all kinds of things. As you can imagine, somebody with a personality like mine has a really bad habit of digging myself into a deep hole and wanting to crawl into it. But what can you do? That's music for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Do you want to pick out a couple of your songs from your back catalogue that we'll put on your playlist that goes out with the podcast that you think should get more attention than they do? Last couple of questions.
More attention than they do. That would be, I would say, you know what? I think it'd be nice to have the Riverside.
Yeah.
That's a song that I wrote for my mum. I'm from a place which is just outside of Southampton. Sadly, not in the posh bit. God gave me this accent, but none of the money. Thank you. But we used to walk the dogs down by the River Test, and that was for my mum. And Who Shot JFK would be the other one.
Yeah.
Go and listen to a song about a JFK assassination.
That's great.
And see what you think. And that's a fun one to play with the band as well. So those would be the two I would pick.
Well, we should definitely include those on the list. Have you got a couple of songs that are not by you that we can put on the list as well? Something that you think we should be listening once we've finished our way through your back catalogue? Where should we go?
Where we should be listening. So I'm gonna recommend. Now I'm gonna ask you a question here.
Go on.
Because would you like more folky sounding music, or does it? What's your vibe? Any preferences?
What's the first thing that you have to put on if you're going to start running because you've sold some more gig tickets?
The first, I would put on something by my brother,
Okay.
Dave Clamp. But his music is quite folky in a way, and he had an EP which came out last year. But then I'm a big fan. His music's a bit more kind of like War on Drugsy, that kind of vibe. So I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. But I grew up listening to Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
So if you were going to push me for a specific song,
yeah,
I would almost certainly be picking Atlantic City by Bruce Springsteen.
Wow.
That would be the song that I would go for. It wouldn't be the song I would run to, but it would be the song that I would go for.
Yeah,
if you want to learn how to write a folk song, listen to the album Nebraska by Springsteen.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
That's the good stuff. And we're going to have to include a Petty now. You've said it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would go for, if you're going for a Petty,
please don't say Learning to Fly.
Sorry?
Don't say Learning to Fly.
I'm not going to say Learning to Fly.
It's just too much of a cliche for you.
It is. Yeah. I would go for, oh man, there's too much choice. And I mean, I Won't Back Down was the song that got me into Tom Petty.
Yeah.
So I would probably have to go for that one. I'm just going to say that one. Otherwise, I'm going to waffle on about B-side songs that people aren't going to know. So just go for that. American Girl would be one of the best ways, I think, to start learning electric guitar is to listen to American Girl. I think that would be a good way to go if you're going to go for the typical Tom Petty stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say fairer than that, can you? That's perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'd be happy with that.
And the fact that you didn't include any of your brother's songs where you had a free choice, I think is a family rift I don't want to dig around in. I think
You Only Love Once by Dave Clamp. You Only Love Once. That song can be by Dave Clamp. There you go.
We'll put that on as a get out of jail free card then. All right.
Yeah, always promote his music 100% of the way. I've got to. He's hopefully he's playing my first dance at my wedding, so I've got to dig up his music. Otherwise, he won't play.
That's perfect. That's brilliant. We'll make sure it goes on the list.
That's not the song that he's playing at my first dance, by the way. You Only Love Once is not the song. So if you listen to the song, you'd understand why. But it's not as romantic.
Yeah, I did wonder if that was the song. But then, to be fair, I have been at a wedding once when somebody chose the song REM "Bad Day," whose main strap line is "It's been a bad day, please don't take a picture," and that was genuinely played at someone's wedding, and I think it was supposed to be funny, and not many people got it. So they just sort of, watching like the irony drain out of a room is wonderful.
I think you just have to go with romantic, guys. You've just got to go with it. The song doesn't work in those scenarios.
Absolutely, unless you're going to go for something completely off the wall, maybe. But,
that's fair.
Rob, thank you so much for spending the time with us, and for chatting and for being so open and for being so candid. It really means a lot to me that you've given us the time, and I hope people enjoy our chat. Where can they find your socks online? Where can they find your merch table online?
Well, everything is up on Bandcamp now.
Perfect.
Be sure to head there and keep an eye out for Bandcamp Fridays, or just stay in touch. So you can always message me directly. I am one of those annoyingly weird people who will respond to messages if you message me, whether that's through my website or directly through me on socials.
Perfect.
I will always
plug the website for us.
So it is www.robclampmusic.com. That is my website.
Perfect. I'll make sure that gets shared with the podcast. And I mean, you've got a tour guide on there so people know where to find you. They know what your diaries are like.
That is indeed. There's a constant running of shows which is up on the website. So if you're ever not sure where I'm going to be or when I'm going to be, then you can go to the website. You can also subscribe to my mailing list through the website as well, where I will be giving regular updates for that.
Outstanding. And people can book you for a house concert too, right?
They can indeed. I do house concerts, not just in Germany. I do them anywhere. So they're easier to do in the UK, funnily enough, because I can actually bring all of my own equipment rather than trying to hire it from people. So
that's amazing. And people can book those through your website as well, or they can reach out to you via the contact form. And
you can literally just get in touch. You can there's a contact page on the website. You can find my email on there as well, and you can message me directly. So yeah,
that's amazing. Well, Rob Clamp, thank you for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you on the tour circuit somewhere.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you so much for having me. Take care. All right.
You're very welcome. Take care. Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed our chat. You can follow us, you can subscribe, please share it with your friends, and make sure you check out some of our other podcast recordings. You can get them anywhere you get your podcasts. Just search for them online, folkmylife.co.uk. Thank you for spending some time with us. Have a great week.